they've actually put a cover on what they do. And
I guess you could say they put lipstick on a pig.
Exactly, that's what I said. They put makeup on their music.
Welcome to Music Musing. Every once in a while, my brother George and I would have these conversations about music. Music is our passion, and it's a huge part of our lives, and we decided to share those conversations with you. So if you love music, sit back and enjoy this podcast.
Welcome back to Music Musing. I got my brother on the line.
What's up?
We've got a very opinionated one this morning. Extremely opinionated. Well, sort of. We kind of did a pseudo poll, or you put a pseudo poll out there for this on Facebook about a month ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. So we're just kind of going to elaborate on that, but we're going to do overrated bands today. And again, our sides of it are going to be kind of opinionated, but we did kind of throw it out there. You threw it out there, got a bunch of responses, kind of talked back and forth with people directly, but overrated bands. Where do we start with this? This could be, like you said, we just talked for a second before. This could be a 10-part.
Can of worms. Yeah, this is a can of worms that you could literally dissect every band out there, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the good starting point is, yes, we're going to do opinion, and yes, we're going to talk about people's opinions that we discussed with it, but any band could fall into anybody's list at this point.
Sure.
There's times where I go out and look up lists to kind of get a reference, and oddly enough, Rolling Stone did not put out a list like this. I guess they don't want to alienate anyone and upset anyone.
However, Loudwire did.
Well, I found a couple, and I'll you and I can discuss those, but
right.
And I gave a short, synopsis of what we talked about, but you actually had put out a picture on Facebook that said the most overrated band of all time is ... And we're just going to throw yours out there. So let's go with Aerosmith because that's what you threw out there.
The floodgates opened. Yes, I started with Aerosmith. Now, at great length, I've discussed this topic with other people now, even at great length, and that's a tough. You kind of have to gauge, what their actual status was to begin with, let alone what they were, the genre that they're in, the era that they're in, and basically, and then it boils down to your opinion of quality. Was Aerosmith this amazing rock and roll band of this, late 70s, 80s, 90s because of longevity, or was it because of Steven Tyler's voice or Joe Perry's guitar work? I see an immense catalog of music with maybe 2 or 3 Dream On, that they play the life out of, and Sweet Emotion. And
wait a minute, are you naming those as good songs? I'm sorry.
Right, no, but I overplayed or that's what radio and society has deemed, great songs.
The good ones.
And that's why I consider them overrated, because I don't think we can preface it enough. It's personal. This one's personal opinion, and it should be fun. It's not meant to be dark or whatever, or to hurt anybody's feelings. It's just about, I don't see if Aerosmith was off of the musical landscape, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would notice, but there's not on their merit alone, I don't think there's enough to say that they're underrated. I certainly think they're overrated. So.
Well, I'll agree to a point. There's a couple of their earlier songs, like Off Done with Mirrors.
But did they change the landscape?
No. That's what I was going to say. There's a couple, shining moments, and this will come up as a recurring theme for me, because I don't know if I'm saying I'm a little less biased than you are.
Sure.
Like I kind of stay a little open to other stuff, and I'm not, making that a fault. I'm just saying that I can usually find a shining light somewhere. And I'll be honest with you, when I looked at Aerosmith and I said, you know what, maybe I disagree with that. And then I started looking, I'm like, I don't think there's anything that. So the big standout for me was their cover of their own song that Run DMC did, "Walk This Way."
Right.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back and listen to it. When you get to the end of that song, I don't know if you're extremely familiar with it. When you get towards the end of the song, it's Joe Perry like playing a solo over the last 3 minutes of it. And I'm like, do we really need that? I mean, the song was okay in the first place. Run DMC kind of, spiced it up. But man, you get to the end and it's like, just stop. Because where the song's over, it was over 2 minutes ago.
Right.
And, then I listened to like Dumb with Mirrors, some of the stuff off that. And then I listened to Toys in the Attic. And just to kind of maybe I was missing something, and no, I wasn't missing anything. See, I agree with this.
And not to fixate on the first band or one band, but that's what we kind of went by. Is like my friend Sean and I actually went over this. It basically boils down to more or less: did the band change the musical landscape, or were they just popular somehow? And that's kind of, I mean, basically. Loosely how you kind of have to base your attitude or your opinion on it. I mean, it's like Aerosmith, I mean, they've sold probably hundreds of millions of albums. I would hate to oversell them, but they're just, it's like, okay, so did, a lot of bands that again, the musical landscape is littered with bands that are, to me, are overrated based on just because they didn't really, like, you can't say Nirvana is overrated because they changed a genre. You can't say the Beatles are overrated because they changed musical history.
Oddly enough, the list I pulled up actually has Nirvana on it, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Well, my friend and I talked about, he's like, well, the Beatles are not overrated, but like Paul McCartney and Wings.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Well, that's what I mean. That band would have to be overrated, even though it has a Beatle in it. I mean, so it got messy. It got murky fast when you start thinking about it. So
well, and oddly enough, I actually, I kind of made a decision on mine and put it down on in response, and I regretted it because when I actually thought about the band, I've had a small disdain for this band for a while, but when I go back and listen to it, they're not really as bad as I thought, and they've never been one to be arrogant or to be over the top. And I wrote down U2.
I disagree.
Well, I wrote down U2, and I think they are more, what's the word I'm looking for? I think they tout themselves as better than they are. But I don't think they're bad. I probably shouldn't have wrote them down.
This is where it gets murky. Aerosmith's not a bad band.
Well,
I just think they're overrated. U2, I don't think they're bad. They've got a lot of great. To me, I like a lot of U2's music, but I think they're overrated because they throw their political weight around. They throw their.
That's for a different reason, though.
Right? No, but that's you almost have to encompass all that because we talked about. You and I talked about Pearl Jam, I think in the last podcast that we brought them up about their fight with Ticketmaster and
the bootlegging and stuff.
Yeah, and selling the albums to beat bootleggers. Does that make you overrated as a band? I don't think so.
Well, let me turn it to where I should have went, and which is probably my, I don't want to say most hated, but definitely the band I feel actually I should have put down on the list was Kiss. That
was the very first response I got was from your former singer.
Yeah, I know I saw that, and I was going to mention that Patrick kind of jumped in there with Kiss and said that was
yes, actually
what he said was, Patrick Williams said, since music tastes are based solely upon opinion, I will say Kiss hands down. And you replied? I didn't see what reply. What would you say?
I actually posted the video as I was made for loving you. Yeah.
So I should have went there. Honestly, look, I grew up as listening to guitarists and the sound that guitars made, in the songs that we liked and the songs that our parents listened to, and that's what was a draw for me. That's why I learned to play guitar. That's why I picked it up. And there is no talent in a lot of Kiss's guitar work.
Oh.
He is a guitar player. He can make sounds with the guitar, but there's not an extreme amount of talent. Some of the earlier stuff, when you listen to it, it's like all you did was basically take a blues riff and turn it into a little bit of a distorted tone, and maybe, Paul Stanley singing over top of it and changed the sound of it a little bit. And you can make the argument for Led Zeppelin too, that they kind of did the same thing, stole a lot of the 12-bar blues and that sound. But Kiss rode that makeup idea way too far and way too long.
Well, that again,
don't get me wrong, it was cool. It was to grow up and see that band for the first time you see that band and you're like, they're all characters. They're all painted up like they're characters.
It's still we still need to pull it off the shelf, the gimmick routine, because I was thinking about that too when considering all of this. Almost every band from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s had a gimmick.
Yep.
And I'm not even going to go down that road. But I agree with Kiss being overrated because they've made a career of being average.
Yeah, and taking that average and putting the makeup on it. And that for lack of better puns, they've actually put a cover on what they do. And
I guess you could say they put lipstick on a pig.
Exactly, that's what I said. They put makeup on their music, and I don't say that again. I still have a respect for Kiss because I that's one of the bands that attracted me to guitar, and even
again, you can't deny their impact.
No,
but the quality is So I think kind of defines overrated to me.
But that might be how they get the pass. That their gimmick being something extremely unique and not never done. I mean, even Bowie painted his face a little bit before they came around and stuff. But to take that gimmick and turn it into something that's marketable you're right. It was game changing at the time, and I'm not taking anything away from them. I just think they get way more accolades than they should.
Right. No, I agree.
And some of the albums they produced in the late 70s, early 80s, even mid 80s were. So what's the two? What's the? I know the Elders is one of them, which is just an abomination. But what's the other one? The disco one. Was the name of the album? I Was Made for Loving You?
No, was that Dressed to Kill?
Was that the one that I know? I Was Made for Loving You is on it, but I don't remember what album that is.
I think it was Dressed to Kill, where they had the makeup on, but they had like tailored suits on the cover.
I'll look it up, but So I mean, that's kind of where I should have went, because I've really got a more strong feeling that they were extremely overrated for, as far as musicianship. And again, that's kind of where I go to it. So that's
So we were again. This is almost a third party entry as far as the topic is concerned, and his biggest band was REM. Like
whose biggest band?
My friend Sean said,
gotcha.
in this overrated realm, he's like, REM sticks out to me. He said they were basically a college band that turned into a career of, they had one, maybe two decent songs, and they basically just became popular for what reason? Yeah. And that was the one that he was he commented on the impromptu Facebook poll with REM in the 90s, and I'd have to agree with that too, because they're, all but irrelevant now. And as you said, Losing My Religion was, I would say an above average song, but there's, then you follow that up with Shiny Happy People, and it's like, it's a collaboration with the B-52s, and it's not to get off on too far of a tangent, but there's a lot of bands that people commented that I wouldn't necessarily think people thought that way. Some of them may have been just to provoke. Pink Floyd was brought up. Pearl Jam was brought up.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I
Korn
kind
was
of
brought
jumped
up.
back.
No,
Did you already?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I don't. This was extremely difficult to put a bow around. I mean, the actual definition of overrated is not something that you can apply to your opinion.
Well, and I will say that, you know, we had a lot of people jump in, and one of our recent members who joined us on the podcast, Pete Pardo, jumped in with his Guns N' Roses, because I don't know if you've heard his rant on his YouTube page, but he is certainly not a Guns N' Roses. I wouldn't say he's not a Guns N' Roses fan, but he certainly finds them as being overrated. And
sure,
I would say that I'm, you know, as much as I love Guns N' Roses, as much as I love, that's kind of what I tailored my guitar sound and setup as to compare to. I think that after that first album, they became quickly overrated. They were a band that rode that, you know, the coattails of that first album for way too long.
Right. I see that it's difficult. I mean, I really struggle with. I can find good points and bad points to most of these, because you almost have to be popular to be considered overrated.
Right, exactly.
So,
that's where I was going to go to that at some point, that, you know, we didn't make this list up because we just took people who listened to obscure bands and said, oh, this obscure band put out crappy music, and a couple people listened to them. No, these are like you said, you started naming the list. Did you get to down to the Doors? Because the Doors is on there.
that was actually one of my biggest ones was the Doors. I do not understand the appeal. I'm not an anti-fan of the Doors. I don't get it. So to me, they're overrated, because without Jim Morrison, what is there? I mean, there's not.
Yeah, there weren't too many, you know, standout musicians in that band other, you know, than his voice and his writing. Which, it's fun. Oddly enough, you know, I mentioned that I found a list, and the Doors was pretty high on the list. And one of the things they touted was, you know, what he wrote. The words he wrote were not poetry.
No.
They even quoted, what was so they quoted, they wrote a couple lines of Ride of the Storm. It's, there's a killer on the road, his brain is squirming like a toad. Take a long holiday, let your children play. If you give this man a ride, sweet memory will die, killer on the road.
Yeah, that's lyrical brilliance right there.
So I
mean, if you're not on strong hallucinogenics, there's no way you're into it. I don't care.
Yeah, I will say that, you know, we just talked about the Kiss. It was actually the Dynasty album that had "I Was Made for Loving You" on it. Yeah. It had that. It actually had the 2000 Man cover, the Rolling Stones cover by Ace Frehley too.
Oh wow!
But "Dirty Living" was on it, which was a heavily, you know, disco sounding song as well. But so let's turn this around. I'm going to read one on the list that I was kind of shocked that they mentioned on the list that I found.
And I'm going to give you an immediate response.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You're just
I'll
go there?
say like or dislike. I'll just my gut reaction. I agree or disagree.
Well, you know what? Sorry, we already mentioned it. Nirvana.
Oh, disagree.
Yeah, I don't. You know, they only made 3 albums. Technically 4, I guess.
But it changed the landscape of music. That band was the linchpin to starting the grunge generation. You can't deny it.
No, and I
whether
think
you like them or not.
Yeah, I think and I think that my definition of overrated, now that we'll kind of, you know, back down to the basics here. My definition of overrated is a band that received accolades based off of almost a gimmick. I mean, I've kind of boiled it down to that. I've kind of boiled it down to the fact that, you know, there's something about that band that sets them apart almost physically that makes them overrated for me, that they didn't get, you know, that the music was bad or and it got covered up by something. But Nirvana, the music was supposed to be raw. If you look at Nirvana's music as the catalyst for them being overrated, I think you're making a mistake. I think
absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're making a mistake if you're considering the music the reason that they're overrated.
That's when I agree. It's the same context as someone mentioned the Beatles being overrated. You told me that, I mean, we were probably teenagers and you told me this, and like, because I've never been a huge fan of the Beatles. I appreciate their work, but I'm not a huge fan.
Right.
You always said, in context, by comparison with what was happening in 1963, 64, this bubblegum pop and sock hop music and so on and so forth, the Beatles changed the landscape. They changed the expectations, and they changed the reality of how music was looked at, how music was viewed. And in 1964, in a time when, bands were, released on the Ed Sullivan Show, it was epic.
Well, I'll even go one step further. That they not only did that once, but 2 or 3 times. I mean,
right.
If you look at Sgt. Pepper album,
that's what I mean. They changed the landscape not just once, but
a
couple of times.
And I think that's when you talk. If did anybody put that on the list? I don't know if anybody responded to your list with that, but I think I would have argued it at that point. Oh, somebody did actually put it on your list. Yeah, somebody actually put the Beatles on your list.
No, that's what I said. Yeah, it was brought up, and it's like, whether you like them or not, whether you like Nirvana or not, there's no way to argue their impact.
Yeah, I don't think they classify in my definition, in my traditional definition of overrated. For me personally, I can't, I can't see them as being listed as an overrated band. Musically they were talented. They experimented with a lot of different sounds. They created almost a new genre of music and brought it to the States and stuff, and kind of transferred it into something almost completely different. 2 or 3 albums later. So,
but I think so did Nirvana.
Yeah, no, and I agree. If you listen to the difference between Bleach and Nevermind, it's a big difference. It's kind of like the difference between Too Fast for Love and the next and Shout at the Devil for Motley Crue.
Right?
Completely different sound. And do they fall on your list? Does Motley Crue fall on your list?
They were brought up. Nobody mentioned them, but my buddy brought them up. I brought them up, and he said, I don't think they were overrated because they were what they were. They weren't like...
They're a party band.
Yeah, they weren't... There's no way to overrate something that they weren't looking to be rated. They just wanted to have fun and play rock and roll music and get stoned or whatever.
But I mean, you could say the same about Kiss.
No, Kiss was a business. Kiss is a machine. Gene Simmons more specifically led that, because they are so.
Isn't he quoted as saying rock and roll is dead? Isn't that his claim to fame recently?
Right. So, but no, we were talking. There was a host of bands in the '80s, Motley Crue, ZZ Tops, that were marginally popular, but they had a gimmick. I mean, Motley Crue was all about the women and the drugs and the whatever, and the party band. ZZ Top, was all about the innuendo and the beards, and they made a living out of that. They had a hot rod in their one video, and everybody relates them to that. So there's a myriad of bands that I decided that don't even deserve to be rated, let alone over or under.
Like omitted, they should be omitted from this list. Period.
Right. They shouldn't even be considered, because somebody on the impromptu poll brought up Pink Floyd. Now, I think they changed the genre, or they almost created a subgenre of rock. Like they created the stoner rock contemporary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's oddly enough, that'll lead me to one of the ones on the top 10 list that I found. But yeah, I agree. I think they.
But I don't consider them overrated. They are what they are.
So for me, I kind of do, and I can hear Mike Jeffries rolling in his grave at this point. Well, he's not dead, but I can hear him rolling in his bed or something right now. Anyways, I love their music. The Wall, again, I suggest if you can find the Wall soundtrack, it's much better than the Wall. But I really feel like they're overrated. I feel like the shows and stuff they put on and the money they charge for their shows, and it just, they feel like an overrated band in my book. And
I partially agree. I really like Pink Floyd. I enjoy the music, listened to it, for years, and never been a stoner. So, but I appreciate for what it is. Overrated. That's where it gets. That's where
we're coming down to opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, when Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, how many? Look on your little computer there, and tell me how many albums Dark Side of the Moon has sold.
Oh boy, I couldn't imagine.
I bet it's in the hundreds of millions. And
Dark Side of the Moon.
I believe that they're an average band with a really cool laser show. I would have to side probably with several people that I'd say they're overrated.
Yeah, I kind of do as well.
David Gilmour is a brilliant lyricist and guitar player. But with all the trouble the band had, and the different members and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you can plug and play different people,
right.
And when Waters and Gilmour separated and stuff like that, it turned into a kind of a sideshow, and they battle each other as far as who's touring under what name and whatever. And
it's the top 25 list of best-selling albums. I was trying to see if there was any numbers. I don't see any numbers on it yet, but
real quick, what's number one on that list?
On the list that I gave?
Yeah, no, on the list. Yeah, the 25 albums.
Oh God. Let's see. You want me to start? You want me to give you number one?
Yeah, I just wonder what the number one selling album. Is it Thriller still?
Yeah, it's still Thriller. God, you know what number two is?
No.
So Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon is number 3. If that gives you anything.
Wow, I knew it sold a ton.
Back in Black.
Really?
Yeah. If you can believe that.
I would have lost a lot of money that was a number 2 selling album of all time.
We're both AC/DC fans.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm still more privy to Ron Scott's version of AC/DC than Brian Johnson, But that's shocking. I would have not have guessed that.
Yeah, and not to go down that road, because that's probably a podcast in and of itself there too.
Exactly, yeah. But Dark Side of the Moon was number 3, and it's odd because Michael Jackson being number 1, and then you got 3 rock ones right in a row, and the fourth one, I'll be able to hear you. This would be like the parting shot at this point, but Bat Out of Hell, Meatloaf.
Oh my. Sean Pierce, I know you're listening, and my friend Sean started this. That's who brought this overrated thing up. Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell is number 4 in a top 25, and he and I literally at odds our entire relationship over Meatloaf, and
I won't go into the rest of them. I figured you'd get a kick out of that.
I'm publicly and worldwide apologizing to Sean Pierce for not liking Meatloaf, the band. The man, the legend, apparently.
I'll tell you what, I'll run down the top 10 list I found. I don't know if you've got yours there, but I'm going to go ahead and run down this real quick, and okay. You just give a quick yes or no. Sex Pistols, number 10.
Completely. Because they were brought up. Until Sid Vicious died, they weren't even relevant anyway.
Yeah, I don't... For me, they were not overrated. They just didn't.
They shouldn't have been rated.
See, for me, overrated means that they're still around and that they're trying to continue to do stuff like U2 or Pink Floyd and stuff like that. That's kind of leaves them, open for that type of stuff. Yeah. Sex Pistols, I don't think were around long enough. Like you said, I think until
have 2 albums.
Good question. I'll look it up. But I just don't think they had enough. I don't think they had enough material to be considered,
Right. Okay, and I'm going to interject right there on purpose because
sure.
The Foo Fighters have 12 albums, and Dave Grohl's a great guy, but I think they're completely overrated.
Oh, gosh.
And I think the
too.
music is meh.
Look, I think he's a great guy. Like you said,
They have
I think
12 albums, and I mean, most people can't name more than 3 songs.
And again, I like the guy personally.
Right. I think he's
got,
amazing. He's rock and roll. The guy is a great, lovable guy, does a lot of good things for a lot of people. The guy goes to Metallica concerts and stands on the floor with the fans.
Yeah.
Not denying that. The music, the band, you know what I mean? I think they're overrated. But
wow.
I'm not going to step into that realm yet, because that's probably a fight in and of itself.
Studio albums for the Sex Pistols?
Yeah.
1.
So I didn't think they made 2 before he died.
They had a lot of live, a lot of various soundtrack artists, compilations.
Yeah. All right. What's number 9 on the list?
Okay, so number 9 on the list is Grateful Dead. Oh,
100%.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to skip right around. I'm not even going to delve into that one.
Not even going to acknowledge it.
Number 8 is Led Zeppelin. And
overrated?
Yeah.
Anybody that knows me knows I'm not a huge Led Zeppelin fan.
I don't think they're overrated.
I cannot deny. I disagree with. I actually disagree with that a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
Without getting too far into it, I disagree with that a lot, because they were almost a genre of themselves in the 70s.
I think they took what the Beatles did and pushed it. I think they to
the nth degree. I mean, they changed the way rock and roll was understood, and they made it a lot heavier.
Yeah, I think they were ushers of what rock turned into. I mean, they ushered in the next era of rock.
They were a radio friendly Black Sabbath. They were heavy at times, but they were a lot more melodic, a lot more. Yeah. And there was, like we've talked about at great length, there was 4 individuals that were Olympian athletes at their instruments, and Jimmy and the vocals and stuff. It was I disagree with that.
Yeah. Number 7 we already talked about, which was Nirvana. Number 6 is Smashing Pumpkins.
100% agree.
Yeah. See, I'm actually a fan of
Pumpkins
their music. And Corgan. Yeah.
I like the music, but no.
But for me, it kind of fits into that Sex Pistols idea that I don't think they put out enough material for me to think they're overrated. Like, if they put out 15 albums and we're still trying to carry it on, right? I might feel that way, but they didn't put out too many albums for me to.
Well, Siamese Dream had what? I bet it had 4 or 5 hits off of it, maybe more.
Yeah.
But again, they weren't like. I don't think they were instrumental in changing.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm saying is they weren't very high profile. No. I mean, they got played a lot in the 90s. Don't get me wrong. A lot of their music showed up on the radio quite a bit in the 90s.
Well, I think that. Go ahead. Sorry. I think that falls into that. Are they even relevant? Should they even be considered for the list of being overrated, because they're barely even rated, really?
Yeah, that's kind of the way I feel about it. Is they were mainstream for a while, but they rode well. Like you said, they had 4 pretty good 3 or 4 pretty good hits off that album. And then, Melancholy came out, and,
Ava Adore is a great song, but.
Yeah, that's what I said. But I don't think, I wouldn't put them on the list.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 5, Eric Clapton. Oh, man.
Sean brought that up. 100% agree. What has he done?
Is Tears in Heaven? Is that him?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Come on,
I should. Yeah, I know. I should. That's bad.
Slack there, but
that's a musician's faux pas there. I shouldn't do that kind of stuff.
But what has he done? Layla? Well, cocaine?
Yeah. God, if
the Yardbirds, I would say no. Eric Clapton solo, absolutely.
If I could never hear the song "Cocaine" again in my life,
I agree. I agree. And you know me, you like it. I cannot stand Layla.
No, I like the end of Layla. I like when
now that's the part I hate the most. And I'm not. You're gonna have to go to the next one because you're getting me fired up now.
No, I actually agree with you. I do agree with you on this one. I think that he's a good musician. I agree, but there's so many people that play his type of music, and even the type of guitar that he made famous.
Sure.
Like I'll take Stevie Ray Vaughan over Eric Clapton any day.
Let's yeah.
So number 4 was Janis Joplin. And But she, for me, again, it falls into the Sex Pistols range. How many albums did she make? She made one or two,
maybe.
So why would you put somebody like that on the list? I mean,
that's what I said. The relevance is kind of this is where it gets hard to, because she had a great voice.
Yeah. And very, very free flowing, very open, very genuine, honest feeling voice.
Yes, but there are a lot of those.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much back then that was popular, but only because of availability.
Right.
In the 60s and 70s, late 60s and 70s. I agree with that. I don't think, again, that's one it's kind of an asterisk. I don't think she should even be considered for the list, but since she's on it, yes, she's overrated. I agree.
Yeah, it looks like there was 2 Big Brother and the Holding Company albums, and then Full Tilt Boogie was hers. Looks like she only made about 3 or 4 actual studio albums. So,
right.
Anyways, number 3 is Radiohead, which
guilty. Yeah, I'm 100% on board.
Yeah, see, I like everything they've done, so we're gonna argue about that one.
Right. Well, okay. I think that may fall into because I don't. So
yeah.
But in all fairness, I've never given them a fair shake, because what I've heard radio play and stuff, I don't like. I don't like that whiny.
Well, and I think we have to be. I think we talked about this when we actually had this discussion months and months ago about it after you posted it, or before you posted it, and then it kind of came up through the post. But I think we were cautious about that, and I think we discussed it at that point in time that we had to be cautious that we didn't throw bands on there that we didn't like.
Right.
That we had to be careful that we were just looking at bands that we, again, we in an earlier discussion about this, we talked about the fact that we're not picking on bands. We're not picking on bands we don't like. We're not picking on bands that didn't have a good, breadth of work. Like the Sex Pistols. That's why we didn't consider them for our list, because they didn't really have enough work to be considered. But we also wanted to take our biases out of it. And I don't think Radiohead.
Sometimes.
Right, and I don't think Radiohead gets a lot of press, anyways. I don't think they're never pushed out there. They're you hear one of their songs every once in a while, and
you either like them or you don't. I think type of band.
Right. So I wouldn't put them on my overrated list at all. Again, I do like them, but I certainly wouldn't put them on. It's like Guns N' Roses. I love Guns N' Roses, but I would certainly put them on the overrated list at this point. So
see, I'm kind of the same way. I don't care for Radiohead, but I don't even think they deserve to be on the list.
Right.
Because it's because of relevance. I mean, you have the level of. I mean, Pink Floyd, you can argue the 3rd highest selling album of all time, and they're probably overrated. Radiohead probably not so much.
So the Doors was number 2. We kind of already talked about them.
That's a definite.
Number 1. Oh boy, you're gonna love this one. I should have actually just made this my parting shot, but I got a good story for the parting shot. But the Eagles.
They were brought up.
Yeah,
and I kind of have to agree.
Well, but what makes them overrated? I mean, but just because they're played a lot on the radio?
No.
For me, I think the arguments and the fighting and the breakups and the get back togethers and the musicians that were extremely talented on that. You even tried to pseudo bring it up as a super group.
Yeah. I did as a reverse super group.
I think that is my problem. If you took all that away from the Eagles and just went based on their music and their hype up for the band, not for the arguments and the fighting, I would say no. But since all that other stuff is in there, I almost have to agree.
Well, then you have to consider that, because that's like saying, you can't consider Kiss's makeup or their marketing, because that's some of what annoys me is that they've got Kiss toilet paper and Kiss condoms and whatever. But
right.
Musically, man, I'm hard pressed to say that they were number 1 on the overrated list.
Number 1.
Well, who put the list out?
Yeah, that's what I said. So I found a lot of lists out there, and there were a lot of lists that were, very opinionated. It was just basically, I like this band or I don't like this band. Wax and Wayne Music is who put it out.
Okay.
It's a website. Again,
It's
this was done it's done in November of 2014. But again, Rolling Stone isn't going to put a list like this out. They don't want to alienate anybody.
Yeah.
So.
No, man.
So the list you found, what was number one on yours? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember. I don't. Okay. I didn't even keep it because I didn't want to go on somebody else's deal. But I'm a deer caught in the headlights right now with the Eagles. I don't.
No, I'm right with you. I like I said,
I watched a special the other day on the Eagles. Not to interrupt you. I watched a special. It was Rock Legends on Access TV, and it's said that their greatest hits album, the 76 to 79 or 77, 79, the greatest hits album, sold 117 million copies. And it was their third album. They had 2 studio albums, and then they released a greatest hits, and it sold 117 million copies.
That's a lot.
It's hard.
That's greatest hits, right? Like you said.
Yeah, but it's difficult for them to fall into the overrated category for me personally, even though I'm not a ginormous fan. I like a lot of the Eagles' music. You know me, dude. If I hear Hotel California one more time,
let me solidify your findings. Do you know what number 6 on the most sold copy?
Probably the greatest hits album.
The greatest hits, 71 to 75.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
I would be hard pressed to look down the list and see another greatest hits album that high or even on the top 25 list, to be honest with you.
But try to realize that was really early in their career, too. For a greatest hits, they had 2 albums, and they made a greatest hits album. And it sold
1976 was the release.
Right.
Yeah, right after 75. I mean, right after the span of the albums, they put a greatest hits out. So
no, and I don't. Their catalog is probably 20 albums. I'd hate to wager a guess, but I don't agree with the number one. I mean, who's ever list or even on the list as far as being overrated.
I think again. I think it deserves to I don't think it deserves to be number one for sure. I do think it needs to be on the list because of the whole fighting, throwing people out of the band, punching at each other,
right?
Separating, getting back together. Hell freezes over, too much of the drama at that point. So
I agree, and that was early on too. I mean, when guitar player when Joe Walsh came in, that was early. When they swapped guitarists, I was early on, and it solidified the band. There's you can't deny the talent level.
Right. No.
You can't deny the album sales or the number one hits. I bet. I don't know numbers. I haven't. They've got to have at least a dozen number one songs at least.
Number one on the charts?
Yeah, number one. I mean, like Hotel California.
2, 3, 4, 5. I'm counting 5.
Number one song
on the U.S.
That's it.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked. I mean, there's a lot of them that are high, like Lion Eyes is number 2.
Yeah, maybe they are overrated.
I can't tell you why. Number 8. I mean, there's a lot of
top 10s. Yeah,
right.
Okay, I get
top 10s and stuff. Witchy Woman was number 9. But like Take It Easy was number 12 on the
That's
U.S.
all
list.
The higher that went?
Yeah, I know. Well, you got to remember you're fighting with disco at that time. It was 1972.
Yeah, but they played the dog snot out of that song.
Yeah, I know. Tequila Sunrise 64. That's all further it made it.
Oh.
Take It to the Limit made it to number 4.
That's a beautiful song.
Surprise, Hotel California made it to number 1.
Yeah, well, no, that's.
So, not to. You got any last sayings you want to do before I give you your deserved parting shot this week?
No, I sort of I did. We preface this with being opinion and whatever, and it all boils down to this one's not necessarily what you like and what you don't like. This is just like a general consensus of popular bands that maybe they got a little too popular, or maybe once they got popular they got complacent, and I think that helped them fall into an overrated category.
Yeah.
And all the bands mentioned, you can obviously make an argument either way for any of them.
Yeah, I think it's the best point. The best thing to point out is, we do this because we enjoy talking about music, and we have our biases. We love the bands that we love, and we hate the bands we hate. But it certainly, we try to be, even though this is opinionated, we tried to be as methodical as we could about making the decision of whether this band was or not, because of a lot of factors, not just we like it or we don't like it, or a lot of people like it or a lot of people don't like it. So I want to point that out too. I'm
going to give you one quick parting shot, I guess. My parting shot.
You're not allowed to do that.
Well, it's just one artist that was brought up numerous times, Joan Jett.
For me, it falls into the Sex Pistols argument. How many albums did she have? How many songs did she have?
Right.
Overrated. I don't know. I could go either way with that one, because I like the song. I like a couple songs that she's put out, but I don't think she had enough works to be considered overrated.
All right,
for
fair
me.
enough. Yeah. All right, fire away.
Okay, so oddly enough, I actually had a dream about this. I woke up after a dream and went, man, that's going to be my parting shot. But so I dreamed that my wife and I were sitting in a bar that was closing down, and oddly enough, the person that was counting the registers and was basically the owner or the manager was Penn from Penn and Teller, and he's sitting there talking, and we were talking amongst us, and then talked to him a little bit, and the guy who was running the music came on and said, okay, last call, we're going to play this before we go out, and if you want to drink, get it, and we're closing down. Give me the top 5 songs, or even 3, whatever you want to do, that are played to close out a bar, and a rock bar, not like a dance club, just a rock bar. What songs, because a lot of them are going to fall into the bands we talked about today, but what are those 5 songs that you always hear sending you home at 2 in the morning, or out at 2 in the morning?
Comfortably Numb.
Really? Something slow?
Well, usually they try to.
Oh, it's true. Bring you down a little bit. Yeah. Okay. I'll it's your shot.
Man. That wasn't even on my radar.
That's why I do it.
Man, there's a.
So for me, what probably brought this on is we went to a Thursday night wedding, which weird to have a Thursday night wedding, but they do that. Hey, we're trying to get everybody out of the arena or area. But here's the song that kind of throws you out of it, and they played. You Shook Me All Night Long, and I'm like, that's more getting people into it than it is getting people out. So that's what probably stuck in my head with it. But yeah, any other ones you can think of that are
probably like Moni Moni by Billy Idol.
Oh yeah, I could see that one. Yeah.
Man. And Joan Jett, I Hate Myself for Loving You. No.
Probably.
Man, I could think Riders on the Storm by The Doors. See, I'm thinking like cool down, like get people like, oh, let's see, here we go. I'm gonna go to sleep, or I'm gonna get out of the bar. Man.
So for me, it's kind of an up song. But one I always remember when, I didn't do a lot of bars, but when I was younger, we were definitely in that type of stuff. I remember this one place would use the same song like every time, and it was Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
I don't see the getting
But
people
if you think of
jacked
the
up.
think of the end of the song.
Oh yeah, that's
It's kind of like that, crescendo, change key, crash.
right.
And it's kind of like that going away song for me, and
I
that's
get
kind of
it.
what it was.
I guess we
So-
see music differently because I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to this whole. I'm going to sit here and listen.
So
you get me hooked in, I'm going to stay. It's,
This is a parting shot because now for the next week, that's all you're going to think about.
oh
is,
yeah, no,
Is this song one that would close out a bar?
yeah. I would close down a bar with that song. Yeah, definitely.
Well, we'll tie it up, brother. A good episode again. I really appreciate you, hanging out and talking with me. And we've got a lot of good episodes, ideas in our head, and that will be coming out. So you guys keep listening, okay? Take it easy, brother.
See it.
Yeah. We want to talk to you about music, so reach out to us at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com.
You can also find us on most social media sites by searching Music Musing or George or Craig Seibert, SYBERT.
And you can also find us on Twitter as musicmusing_ as well.
Thank you for listening to this Music Musing podcast.